Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I'm going to be doing 1-star reviews of classics. I love doing these types of videos, I think they're really fun, and I want to give a special shout out to Livia for helping me compile this video. She actually picked all the screenshots that I'm going to read through, and I love these types of videos. I think they're always a fun time. No criticism towards the people who wrote these comments, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I just find that this could be quite funny sometimes. So the books that we picked were Flowers for Algernon, which if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know is one of my favourite books of all time. Then we've got Little Women, which I loved, Pride and Prejudice, which I also loved, and also Stoner, which is another one of my favourites of all time. So without further ado, let's jump into the first one. I think we have like 3 or 4 reviews that I'm going to react to for each book. So let's jump in. So the first one we're going to start with is Flowers for Algernon. I hated this book. I might have started feeling sorry for Charlie, but he was a lousy human being, well retarded, as well as when he was a genius. Yes, he became super intelligent, but emotionally he was still a kid. I get that, but I don't care. I don't relate, and I most certainly do not sympathise. Plus, every 2 pages he was sick and his stomach was turning. Like, WTF is this? WTF is that? Oh, I'm just going to be sick again. Wow, you have like 0 empathy and you have a cold heart, clearly. How could you not have any empathy for Charlie? Like, he's literally, like, poor guy, he's just gone through so much and you're just being an absolute asshole about it. I think the fact that he is emotionally still a child, even when he's intelligent, is the point. Like, that is the literal point of the book. Like, even though he's intelligent, his brain hasn't developed in a way that matches that intelligence. Also goes to show that just because you're intelligent, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily emotionally mature. Like, I think you've completely missed the point of the book, my friend. I hate to be that person to say that, but I really do think you have. And yeah, whatever. Next up, we have... This book was painfully terrible on many levels, the first being unbelievability of it all. It's fiction, what do you expect? I realise it's fiction, but while reading the story, I'd appreciate a little bit of believability. Oh, my friend, my friend. Secondly, the character's progression to genius and how he's suddenly so enlightened he is too smart to believe in God, as if science and religion cannot possibly accentuate each other, another notion that bothers me. Thirdly, the storyline progressing into some sad story where people make fun of him and has him becoming smart enough to realise it. If science could have a breakthrough like this, I highly doubt it would be to interfere with past memories. Oh, this guy's an idiot. I'm sorry, I'm not going to continue reading that because you've completely shot yourself in the foot by saying that I need believability. This is a book about a boy, a young man, who goes through a medical procedure that makes him intelligent, and you want believability. It is a science fiction book. Oh, give me patience, give me patience. Let's move on. Most ableist and toxic book I've ever read. I think if that is your conclusion, you have completely missed the point of the book. Next. I really need to do a better job investigating the books I plan to buy. The premise of this book was a good one, but the execution of it left a lot to be desired. The mommy issues, the obsessive psychosexual issues, the parental abuse, etc. turned what could have been a profound statement on mental disability into a soap opera, and a bad one at that. Oh, and if you read a blurb stating that this book is about a relationship between a mentally retarded boy and a mouse, keep digging. Again, I feel like you've just missed the point of the book. Like, again, I hate to be this person, but like, I really do think you've just missed the point of the book. I mean, the whole point of the mouse is that it's like an analogy, right? It's a metaphor for Charlie and kind of where he is from the start and where he is at the end. And the same for Algernon, which is the name of the mouse. And then the mummy issues, the parental abuse, yeah, I mean, again, that goes into why he's very emotionally immature, and that intelligence doesn't necessarily mean that you can rationalise those extremely traumatic things that happen to you. Wow. Wow. All right, we're going to move on to the next 4, which are to do with Little Women. So this is quite a long one. I might not read all of it, but let's just start. I hated this book. I can't even begin to go into all the reasons that I dislike it. It's dull and preachy. Aside from Dro, who is truly an inspired character, we can agree on that. But everyone else seems one note. Most of the chapters come off as morality plays, then solid seasonal plots, and just when Miss Alcott has something seemingly interesting, she breaks it for no other reason than to do something. Whether it's the pairing of Amy and Laurie, her, the point made constantly that Beth's life isn't useless because she is an angel, but she's a total Mary Sue. Really? Because I'm glad she died before I died of boredom? Why would you say that? The forced pairing of Jo and the Professor, why? I mean, really, just keep her single. That we can agree on. There's also the message that pursuing art is selfish. Jo giving up her writing, Laurie giving up his music, Amy giving up her sketching. Interesting, I didn't really pick up on that. It's not a message I expected. This book is always lauded as one that has inspired countless girls to do what? Because outside of Jo's spirit, I don't really see much to aspire to. Blah, blah, blah. I don't think this book is meant to be aspirational. I think it's just meant to show that at that point that this book was written, which I think was like the 1800s, like the mid 1800s, women unfortunately didn't have a lot of opportunities, and in order to be able to live a life that could be deemed at that time to be, you know, one worthy of living, they had to give up certain things. I don't think it's trying to be preachy. I mean, that's not what I ever got from it when I read it, and that's definitely not the message that I got from it as an adult. So yeah, I don't necessarily agree with his conclusion. I do agree that Jo shouldn't have ended up with the Professor. I think she should have just been single. I do think it undermined her arc quite a bit. But then I also like the fact that the Professor was somebody who really balanced her and kind of got the best out of her, which if she'd married Laurie would never have happened, I don't think, because they're far too similar. Amy and Laurie, I actually quite like that twist, even though I did not like Amy as a character, but I did like the way that it was done. Yeah, some I agree with, some I disagree with. Next, I hate this book. I hate this book. It's insipid. Makes me feel like I need a trip to the dentist after immediately looking at the cover. I hate Jo and her supposed tomboyishness and the fact that she's the most flat and dull and stupid character I've ever come across. I hate Amy because she's a vapid idiot who contributes nothing to the story. She's vapid, but I don't think she definitely contributes to the story. I hate Meg, even though I don't remember anything about her. I hate Beth more than all because she's so holy and meek and perfect. And then she goes and dies and everyone loves her even more. It's so interesting that people hate Beth so much just because she's so sweet. Like, I think that says more about you than it does about anything else. Excuse me while I wrecked. Why must this book be so vomitous? It even starts off in this fashion. Let us give our dinner to the poor because we are wonderful. I think this person is just a bad person. That's why it seems to be getting to her quite a lot. I think some reviews can be very telling on a person's character and their personality. And I'm not making a judgment. If that's the way you are, that's the way you are. But I think it's very telling when people hate a character who's just very pure and innocent. And I do, you know, I mentioned in one of my previous videos recently that I think everybody's a shade of grey. I don't think there are just outrightly good people and outrightly bad people. I think everyone's somewhere on the scale. And I think Beth, you know, naturally is going to be much more on the side of like good. But I think that's also reflective of the fact that she's the youngest and the fact that she's seen a lot and she's also the quietest one out of the bunch. So she obviously observes quite a lot. And I don't know, I just find it really funny that people seem to bully her the most, even though like she's such a sweetheart. And I don't think she's like sickly sweet. I just think she's like very rational and emotional at the same time. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. This is quite long. Again, I'll probably shorten it a bit. I wanted to punch a hole in the wall. I was so angry. I hate it and I will keep hating it. The events and characters were written in such a way that repelled me. Saturnine doesn't begin to describe it. Was it meant to be cute? How about real? Relatable? No, Miss Alcott decided this book will not be because God forbids two people who aren't alike fall in love. That doesn't happen in real life. Writing a romance for money? How dare it? God forbid she actually finishes what she starts. No, we must marry the two people who... This person seems like they're having a mental breakdown, if I'm being completely honest. Anyway, by far the most real and relatable character was Jo, but even she was changed because of her tomboy insipidity. And Beth, dear Lord, what is wrong with people hating on Beth? I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't understand. What a moronic, saccharine, tra-la-la-la-la, boring, obnoxious novel. I think this comment is moronic, saccharine, tra-la-la-la-la, boring and obnoxious. So there we have it. Let's move on. I wish I had a time machine to read Little Women through the eyes of a young woman in 1868. It would be new and exciting to see my own hopes, dreams and pains reflected in a novel, but I'm lucky to live in a world full of books and spirited women who aren't crushed by the drudgery of men, and I have hated Little Women every time I have read the set, including Good Wives, which is the second book. The novel's gendered moralism places a heavy emphasis on self-sacrifice and marriage. It's cloying, dull, and full of characters reminiscent of... Like, I'm going to stop here because I think, like, she wrote this book at the time that the characters are in this book, if that makes sense. So obviously it's going to be reflective of that. I don't understand why people find that so hard to grasp as a concept. If you're writing a book, it's like Jane Austen with Pride and Prejudice. You know, if you're going to write a book set in the time that you're writing, it's obviously going to reflect the norms of that society. You shouldn't read it as a book to necessarily be inspirational about the role of women in society, even though that can be the case. You should read it because it's giving you an insight into the reality of day-to-day life at that point, which may or may not be in alliance with what is your life today in the 21st century. I don't understand why that's such a foreign concept. People, what is this? What is this? Don't read a book set in 1860s for relatability, is basically what I'm trying to say. Because it's almost certainly not going to be in 2024 completely relatable. There might be parts of it that are relatable for sure, but it's not going to be entirely relatable. I don't understand why that's so hard to realise. All right, we're going to move on to Pride and Prejudice now. This is going to be interesting. I think we have 5 for this one, so it's probably going to be quite juicy. I love Pride and Prejudice. It's a 5-star for me. It's fantastic. So let's go in. I'm going to read it as it's written. There's quite a few typos, I think. I'm so disappointed with this book, I can't even tell you. This was not what I expected. And the core subject of the book, I think they mean the core subject of the book, feels deviated to the wrong sister. How can people go by this condescending tone to either sexes without being offended? The whole purpose of a woman is to be presented for marriage, or the man's a version of the female qualities and lonely in looking at her attraction. Again, see my previous comment about Little Women. Their constant obsession is who will be next to get married or attend balls in order to find a suitable husband. Again, I think that's probably somewhat reflective of society at that time. It's also interesting to note, Bennet family, while they are not rich, they are also not poor. I would just kind of classify them as the middle class. They have land, they have, you know, money to be able to have a maid and like run quite a big house. So they're not poor by any means. So yes, while it's not going to be reflective of like the poorest of the poor, it is going to give you some insight into what it was like for the middle and the upper classes. I don't understand why this is so hard for people to understand. Keep going. Lying to make a woman more suitable for man so she can make him happy, lying through their teeth, hiding every flaw that makes her true identity. What came as a shock was when Miss Bennet was actually relieved to find her daughter Lydia went missing to elope. That way she can brag in front of Mrs. Lucas, saying I have a 16-year-old and she got married. Yeah, because at that point, that's what life, you know, a woman's achievement was who she got married to, not, you know, what her job was or anything like that. It was for who she got married to, because that's what society said a woman's worth was tied to. Again, I don't understand why this is hard to understand. Move on. This comment says, Jesus Christ, just have sex. No, let's leave things to the imagination once in a while. Next, rules of succession under the primogeniture regime are the engine of narrative here, which involve endogamy crisis featuring a surplus of unemployable daughters who must be traded off to various male specimens of uncertain means, lest the heirs' estate be wasted on their apparently futile maintenance. This is the perfect comment to illustrate when somebody who thinks they're intelligent is saying something of worth, when in actual fact it means nothing. Not only is this just drivel, it's also a person who doesn't know how to use punctuation. There are no caps locks, there are no full stops, where there could have been quite a few full stops. It's just a comment that literally means nothing. So there we go. Let's move on to the 4th one. Sorry, I couldn't get into the babble about who was committing what social scandal anymore. These characters are excellent in bits and pieces. I just couldn't handle the whole book of it. Fair enough. Maybe it was the wrong time, wrong place for me. Don't worry, I will sit in the I read it wrong corner for this one, so don't bother trolling me. That's totally fair. Totally fair. Last one on Pride and Prejudice. In my opinion, this is just about Victorian snobs talking about snobby things, and I don't like snobs. Okay, why did you read it then? I used to hate Mr. Darcy until I found out he was 10,000 a year. Now I'm madly in love with him. The unromantic link of money and love are just too much for me. It just makes women of this period seem pathetic. It's my goal to read all the classics that appear to be the greatest books of all time, so I'm glad I could cross this one. It's possibly the most boring book I've ever read. I mean, fair enough if you found it boring, but I think saying that it makes the women of this time seem pathetic. I mean, obviously you're entitled to your opinion, but again, I think that's a reflection of society at the time. And unfortunately, women were just reduced to being an object that was being sold off to marry, essentially. And so naturally, they are just going to see who they marry also equally as one would feel as if they are being objectified, if that makes sense. I said that very ineloquently, but you probably get where I'm going with that. All right, we're going to go to Stoner now. Stoner is one of my favourite books of all time. It's just so beautiful. And there's 4 here, so let's jump in. I don't usually write reviews, give a book my star rating and call it done, but what the hell, this book actually pissed me off. I made it over halfway through and could not take the torture any longer. A boring, tedious read with loathsome characters in which I could find no redeeming qualities. By all means, give it a go, blah, 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 blah. I desperately want those wasted hours of my life reading this great American novel back. I mean, I think, again, they're supposed to be morally grey. Like, they're not supposed to be completely 100% pure. They are very fallible characters, and I think that's the point. Elegantly and precisely written, but ultimately infuriating in the worldview it presents. What begins as a fascinating study of a working class man's struggle to enter the world of academic literary scholarship descends into a baffling portrait of how mediocre white men are fatally undermined by nasty women and embittered disabled people. An incel manifesto for highbrow readers. I did not get that at all. I mean, I'm a woman, ethnic minority, and I just did not get that at all. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say that. I mean, obviously, that's their opinion, they're entitled to it, but I did not get that once when I read this book. Solidifies my view that academics tend to have terrible taste in literature and sheltered, shallow world views. At no point did I feel like there was a world being presented outside of the protagonist's POV, and even that felt lacking in perception. If it weren't for this book being so egregiously overrated, I might be able to muster out an it's okay, but all things considered, this is a disappointing piece of flaming garbage with boring, underdeveloped characters and an uninspired, cynical, male-centered lesson to teach. What is it with people not using full stops? Please. I mean, that being said, you guys are like exercising my lungs, so maybe it's actually good. Last sentence, life sucks and then you die. Speak for yourselves, nerds. From an actual stoner. That's quite funny. Lacking in perception. I think this book is very self-aware. I've always said this about this book. I feel like this book is a cautionary tale of what happens when we let life just run its course. And I think for that reason in itself, it's the complete antithesis of lacking in perception. I think it's super self-aware. I think it knows exactly what it's saying. And I don't think it's shallow. I think it's actually probably quite reflective of a lot of people's lives. And yeah, I think it's a really beautiful story. All right, this is the last one. This dreadful book gets 1 star for grammar and style. Other than that, there is nothing to recommend it. A man is born, goes to school, is oppressed, outmaneuvered and defeated by life. Then he dies. The end. I simply cannot understand the rave reviews. The main character is so repressed and passive. I became more and more depressed as the book neared the end when I realised that any hope that he would eventually get up on his hind legs and do something for himself would be unrealised. Again, use a full stop. He allows his wife, his colleagues and finally life to run over him like a steamroller when he lies down and plays dead. I think that's the point. I think a lot of people live their life like that way. I think a lot of people feel very uninspired by their lives. I think a lot of people let their life just run ahead of them and they're not living life. It's just happening, but they're not living it or experiencing it. And again, that's why I say I think this book is very much a cautionary tale, because it's ultimately about a man who had a lot of promise and opportunity, but unfortunately because of circumstances none of that really got realised. And that's why I call it a cautionary tale, because it's about what happens when life just gets away from you. So again, I don't agree. I think a lot of this is actually just a misrepresentation of the book, personally. Then the last bit, this person writes, the women in the book are also horrible. The book would fit right on the shelf next to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for its dislike of women. There's not one likable female character. Even the love interest is as passive as the main character. They deserved each other. Again, I don't agree. I think the female characters are super nuanced. I think the main love interest is also a victim of being a part of a life that was designed for her, not by her. And unfortunately, I think at least at that point, women's role in society was very much to be at home and to serve their husband. And that is what we see in this book. So again, I don't agree. I think this is a huge mischaracterization of the book, personally. So there we have it. I think the number one lesson that I've learned from this is that more people need to use full stops. Yeah. If you're going to write a 1-star review in future, please use full stops in your review so that if I do ever find it and use it in one of my videos, I can breathe at a suitable point. Let me know down below if you want me to do another part of this video, and if you do, recommend me some books to do 1-star reviews of, my reaction to 1-star reviews, or even the opposite, 5-star reviews of books that maybe you didn't like or I've mentioned in the past that I didn't like. I like these videos, they're fun. I'm not in no way saying that these people are bad people for having these views. It's me kind of exaggerating my opinions on their comments just for light humour and relief, so please don't take this seriously. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Like I said, if you have any suggestions, do comment down below, and I will see you in my next one. Thanks for watching, folks. Stay safe as always, take care, and I will see you very soon. Bye.